Let's bring on board Alistair Newton, Senior Political Analyst, Nomura. He joins us on the show all the way from London. Alistair, hi, morning. Well, it's always been Modi for you. Do you think in the last, 1 week, 10 days, reports of ideological differences between, senior BJP members could in any way dent the Modi phenomena?
It's clearly not helpful in the run-up to an election when you see open divisions within the hierarchy of any party fighting the election. However, I think we need to keep in mind here that in many respects this election is about Narendra Modi, the man, rather than Narendra Modi, the BJP prime ministerial candidate. He has in effect turned this into almost a quasi-presidential type election by promoting himself as the person who can boost growth in India with the support, of course, of his party, the BJP. And it may be that that has caused some of the frictions which we're seeing breaking out within BJP, personalities perhaps as important as policies. Unfortunately, in the world we live in today, in almost any democracy, personalities become perhaps almost as important as policies in an election, and this election, rightly or wrongly, for better or worse, with upsides and downsides, is very much about Narendra Modi. So I don't see the divisions within BJP having a significant negative impact on BJ's likelihood of winning the election.
Alistair, what are the chances of a BJP government without Modi as PM? That's an important one. And how do you see markets really reacting to it?
We put a 75% probability on the NDA, BJP's coalition, winning more than 200 seats. In that event, I think it's extremely likely that Narendra Modi would indeed become Prime Minister. If BJP were to fall below that threshold, however, his chances of becoming Prime Minister probably do diminish somewhat, given rivalries within BJP ranks. So nevertheless, as you can tell, we are seeing that as a very low probability event indeed, with the caveat that, of course, history has taught us to be a little cautious over opinion polls in India, which are indicating, latest opinion polls were indicating an NDA plurality of over 240, which would be very substantial indeed. If the opinion polls are wrong, as they certainly were in 2004, predicting an NDA victory but seeing a Congress victory, then obviously we'll be in a different ballgame altogether. But for the time being, we're very happy to stand by our call of a 75% probability of the NDA winning more than 200 seats and of Narendra Modi then becoming Prime Minister.
Alistair, while most opinion polls give the Congress no chance, is the market right in ruling out the possibility of a Congress-backed third front?
One certainly would never rule out an upset, in part for the very reasons I was giving in response to the earlier question, which is that Indian opinion polls have historically not necessarily been totally reliable. I've already suggested 2004. In 2009, there were many people who believed that the NDA would win that election. And again, we saw a solid victory from Congress. Also, we don't know how, to what extent we're going to see a late rally behind Congress and its associated parties. It could happen. Competition is fierce in Indian elections, so we shouldn't count too many chickens before they hatch. Nevertheless, just to emphasise the point, we still see a solid NDA plurality, 75% probability, as I've said earlier, coming out of this election.
Mr. Congress too seems to have upped its game when it comes to handshaking minorities. Do you think the majority support could turn out to be a swing factor which no one is pricing in?
Minorities, of course, are an issue in India. We have a very, very broad spectrum within the 814 million voters. Many will vote on regional grounds, some will vote on caste grounds, some will vote on the basis of the perception of BJP's stance as a pro-Hindu party. So clearly minorities will play an important role in this election. But overall, what we see is what we think is a real change of mood in India. And Indian voters have been given a very clear choice, if you look at the two main parties, Congress and the BJP, between Congress's established redistributive policies, which worked extremely well in 2009, where I would argue that the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme was a key factor in boosting support for Congress. But this election, we seem to be going into it with Indian voters being very much behind the BJP pro-growth economic policy, pro-growth economic policies, and hopefully efficiency on implementation. And we feel that those could be critical factors in this election.
Alistair, parts of the media as well are revisiting the 92 communal riots for right or wrong. Could it impact the saffron wave in any way?
The 2002 communal riots. Clearly, as I suggested earlier, Narendra Modi does have a certain issue hanging over him from the 2002 communal riots. This is frequently referred to in the Western press. Indeed, a leading newspaper in this country, which is pro-free market, last week declined to back Narendra Modi for Prime Minister, principally on the basis that they perceive him to be a divisive figure. One can't get away from that entirely, but certainly the sense I've had visiting India this year is that that is an issue which is on a back burner to a large extent relative to what seems to be really important to most Indians, which is the economy, economic growth prospects, and the prospect that maybe Narendra Modi can do for India what he has done for Gujarat in terms of reform, boosting the economy as a whole, boosting the size of the pie, and therefore making more pie available to the vast majority of Indians downstream.
What about the three ladies? The three women collectively seem to have reins tight in their grip. Jayalalitha, Mamata Banerjee and Mayawati. How do you think they will make their moves?
As with all of the smaller parties in India, whether led by women or by men, they will almost certainly have some part to play in the post-election horse trading, which we anticipate to form a majority coalition. Let's keep in mind that although 246 latest opinion poll forecast for NDA may sound extremely solid indeed, and it's not just a question of getting to a simple, narrow majority of 272. For a stable government, I think really you're probably looking at closer to 300 seats within the coalition. All of the three parties, leaders you have mentioned, could be playing an active part in post-election coalition negotiations. But if I had to single out one, with all due respect to the other two, I would have to say that Jayalalitha is probably the one who is perhaps more likely to find herself in serious coalition forming talks with the NDA. I'm less sure that we're likely to see Mayawati playing a key role. She was widely tipped to be a key player in the post-2009 election coalition forming negotiations. That turned out not to be the case. But we'll see what happens thereafter. One thing which is sure is that women are becoming increasingly important in Indian politics, as indeed they are in politics in many other countries. And a better gender balance in terms of representative assemblies in India can, in my view, only be a good thing.